Hello everyone, welcome to our Facebook Live today. We're going to talk about a very interesting fabric, a category of fabrics actually, that are a little bit challenging to sew. Challenging is saying the word lightly actually, pretty tricky, but it's a category of fabrics that I really love. They are crinkled and gauzy and textured, and they change when you launder them. And so we're going to get into what kind of fabric is this, how we're going to deal with it, techniques, tips and tricks for really taming this fabric. But before we get into that, I'm just going to tell you, because it's always a question, what do I have on? And today I have on the Odette top, which is part of our Odette and Ivy pattern. It has various different segments to it. It has one dart, a bust dart on one side, and then a princess seam on the other side. So it's very asymmetric, but it all flows together. Normally the pattern is long sleeved. I just shortened it an inch or so above my elbow, and I really like that for summer. I've made it in a viscose jersey, meaning a rayon jersey that's very drapey, easy to work with. We have lots of print jerseys in our inventory. This is actually last year's. I made this at the end of last summer, but I find that I wear it under a jacket, wear it on its own. I can wear a vest over it. It's been a versatile style for me. You know, I like t-shirts, but I like t-shirts that have a little something going, and this one with its asymmetry on the hem really appeals to me. It kind of tricks the eye into looking different directions on your body. Last week, if you tuned in to our Facebook Live, I talked about pants, and I talked about the Hudson pants, and I also talked about a very specific fabric. Did I say Pacific or did I say specific? I'm not sure. Anyway, I talked about a fabric that's viscose rayon, super drapey, and I have the Hudson pants on today in that fabric. We still have white and off-white and a couple of colors, but I wanted to explain a couple of things that I didn't explain last week, in that this fabric comes in two weights. There's a sort of regular weight, which is what I have on, and it has a lightweight. And we only have about 4 colors of the regular weight and 4 colors of the lightweight. The lightweight, in my opinion, is a little too light for a pant weight. It's more for shirts, tops, blouses, whatever. So be sure and pay attention to that if you're on our website perusing that category of fabrics, which is under fabrics, under viscose rayon, and then under solids. And they're all listed there. But do pay attention to that word lightweight and make sure that you understand which one you're getting or interested in looking at a little bit more carefully. All right, let's talk about some fabrics that is the topic of the day. We have a lot of, I guess we'll call them crinkled gauzes, and I use that word gauze sort of loosely because we think of gauze as more open weaved, meshy, and so forth, but it doesn't really have to be that way. There are double gauzes, single gauzes, and other fabrics that are just simply textured, that when you do something with them, like wash them, they really change character. So for instance, here is a fabric that off the bolt looks a little bit textured, a little pebbled. This is just a little piece off the bolt, but I took a piece of it home and washed it, and I'm hoping that you can see in the camera the difference in the texture. It really looks different. This has shrunk, and it's narrower and also shrunk in length as well. But I love how it looks. It totally changed character. But it's now super drapey and more difficult to work with. We have this type of fabric in a lot of different fibers. This one happens to be linen, all linen. The one behind me is all wool. So beautiful red. We also have this in black. And by the way, all of these fabrics that I'm going to be mentioning throughout the Facebook Live today are listed now in a new category. We've added a new category on our website of headings called videos, and all of these videos for Facebook Live and YouTube will be there, and then under that is a link to the fabrics that I'm going to be talking about. So if you're confused and don't want to really go back and watch the video so much, those links will be there for you, so it's easy. So at any rate, this is worsted wool. We also have it in black. The white one that I just showed you also comes in this beautiful steel gray. And you can see it looks fairly flat when you just look at it, but washed, remember, will become very textured and pebbly. Also have that fabric in black. And then we have another category that's just a little bit different. This is also linen. Let me hang this one up a minute. A nice chambray blue. All right. So I want to show you some garments that can be made up in this sort of fabric. We have this in 4, 5, 6 colors. I can't really remember, but we have it in this black with a little bit of a white texture to it, and this is the Cottage Shirt. I've paired it over our Noto tee, which is part of our So Confident 2020 program. If you're a member of that, you get this pattern as part of your package with that membership. But this is a great pattern for loosely woven fabrics. It can be made in anything, really, but it's a great shirt, great jacket, little vest. It's very, very versatile as a pattern, great summer pattern, and it can be made for the winter as well. We have it in another color, which is this natural color. You can see there are some deep hems in this particular style. There's a back yoke, a collar and a stand, and the detail on the sleeve, the band. This is the colorway of the season. If you are checking out websites, fashion sites, you're going to see this natural and pink and salmon, beautiful combination. It's a combination that we haven't seen much. This is a cotton knit, and it's the Eureka with a little bit, Eureka top with a little bit of a variation to it, which is also on our website in the blog of how to do that. We have another color, this incredible rich deep teal that has a little bit of a black thread through it, so you can use black buttons and black accents. But we also have it over a swing tee, and this time this is in a lightweight ponte knit. So the lightweight version of ponte is very drapey. Now the same cottage shirt can be lengthened and made into a tunic. So here it has some side splits, curved hem, and the collar, rather than using both the collar and the stand, this is the stand only. And the collar's been eliminated, so that makes a nice detail. But what a great little breezy summer. I can sort of picture this kind of beachy, you know, as a throw on over a swimsuit or whatever, but also with leggings or slim pants, some white jeans, a little white t-shirt. You'd be good to go for summer. All of these cottage shirts and those particular fabrics that I've mentioned, we actually have as kits on our website. And when you order a kit, you get it in a package like this. You also get the thread and the buttons. The pattern is separate. We do that because there are so many people who already have the pattern, and we don't want you to have to duplicate that, so you would have to order the pattern separately. But just know that we do have the kits already made up, so in these times especially, it's great to have everything that you need very handy, and you don't have to go shopping, so to speak, either online or in person, to get all that you need to make the garment. Other styles that work really well in the gauze fabrics. This happens to be a linen gauze. I love this because this is one of those garments that you just throw on indoors when there's too much air conditioning in a conference room or an office or any kind of a space. Throw it in the car, put it on. This is the Purl Jacket of the Pearl and Opal pattern. It has a drawstring which you can either install or not and wear it flat, or you can, of course, ruche it by pulling the drawstring and create a totally different look to the pattern, which I also really like. So there's the different look to it. So put it over, make it in a basic black, one of our black gauzes, and you have yourself a great summer jacket. This is over another Odette, and you can see in this case, same pattern that I have on, that some of the piecing that happens on this, there's a kind of a peplum at the bottom, and you can make it up in different fabrics and different designs. So those are some fabrics. Let me show you a couple more. This beautiful denim blue, very versatile. Again, wash this and it changes character just a little bit. Of course, we always recommend that you test. Cut off a 4-inch square of fabric when you get the fabric at home and throw it in the washing machine with something else, beat it up, agitate it, put it in the dryer, and see what happens to it. See where and how much it shrinks, and if you like it. You know, if you don't like it when it's changed character, then either don't sew it or you know it's a dry clean garment. There's another category of gauze that is this one. Now this is like a double cotton gauze. And you can see that it has some texture to it, but not a lot. It has a little bit of a spongy character to it. And I just knew that when I saw this category that I wanted to make something. I didn't know what, but I kind of logged this in as a fabric that we have. We have it in 3 colors. This beautiful caramel color, a rust color, deep rust, kind of auburn color, and this wonderful mauve color. It's all cotton, 100% cotton. All right, so I know about the fabric, trying to decide what to do. And one of my favorite ready-to-wear brands is Oscar. And I found this picture and saw this oversized, casual, relaxed jacket, and I thought, that looks like I could use the Zen Shirt Pattern of ours and make a jacket like this. And then a few days later, in the mail, or not in the mail, in the email, comes an ad from Eileen Fisher, one of my favorite brands as well, to follow. And all of a sudden, loved since 1984, kind of a retro vintage look of an oversized jacket in a neutral color. I thought, that's it. That's what I'm going to make. So I pulled out the Zen Shirt Pattern. This is part of the Now in Zen, Z-E-M. If you were just to make the pattern, this is what you would get. A shirt that has a double placket. It also has a double collar, one that's taller than the other. The outer collar is tall, the inner collar is shorter. So how I wear this is with the outer collar turned down and the inner collar standing up. A simple sleeve and an inverted pleat in the back. This is just like the pattern. So I took this pattern and I made my oversized jacket. So here are the changes that I made to the pattern. First of all, I lengthened it 5.5 inches. All of that is just standing in front of the mirror with a tape measure and trying to determine how long I want that. I added pockets, just rectangular pockets. I didn't sew up the side seams completely, left about a 7-inch vent opening. And instead of using both collars, I chose the narrower one and just used that. Didn't do the double collar because this fabric is lofty and I thought it would be just a little bit too thick to have both collars. I left the placket, but I made the placket a little bit wider, a little bit deeper, because I thought the proportions of it needed to change because of this oversized look. And I went 2 sizes larger than I normally would. If I make a small, I might cut out a large. If I make a large, I might make an XXL. I'll talk about that in a minute after I get the jacket, tell you about when the jacket was done. But that's what I did to the pattern. Simple alterations. Left the pleat in the back as well. And I am really happy with this. But if the shirt in cotton would take you a day to make, a garment in this fabric is going to take you 2 days to make it. It takes about twice as long because there are things you need to do. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Excuse me. All right. So I decided to wash the fabric first, and it obviously changed a lot. It became much more crinkled than the original fabric. And I didn't really keep track of how much it shrunk, and I don't think it really shrunk a lot in length, but it certainly did in width. So whenever you're talking about this sort of fabric, you probably want to add maybe a half a yard to your order or your purchase, and just to make sure that you have enough fabric. Then I did what I always do and what I tell people to always do, and that is to make test samples. So I'm going to get my little board up here. I've listed some of the things that I'm going to talk about so that you don't have to really rewind. You can just maybe follow along as I talk about them. I made a seam finish first, so I sewed on the vertical. What I discovered is I absolutely need a walking foot, and if you have a machine that has an even feed feature, certainly engage it. But frankly, I wish I'd had this at home, because even a machine with an even feed feature, I think there are times when you want this sort of additional walking foot. If your machine doesn't come with a walking foot, and really not very many machines do, you want to buy this. It's not an inexpensive accessory. This is a Bernina one, but you want to buy one. You want to step up and ask for it for Christmas or buy it for yourself for your birthday. But it's, to me, an essential accessory because it's just that much better than the even feed feature. If your machine is old and you can't get one of these anymore, then you can buy generic walking feet, and that will attach to any machine. They're not quite as good, I have found out, but they're better than none at all. So I sewed my first seam on the vertical with a straight stitch, and then I serged the edges, 3-thread serge. And last week, or the week before, I can't remember, we talked about what kind of serger thread I use. I use serger thread from Isacord, which is mainly for embroidery, machine embroidery. But in this case, I actually, and not on this particular sample, but in my garment, I wanted the thread to match exactly. So I had 4 spools of regular cotton thread to use on this fabric. I sewed the seam with the cotton thread, and I had 3 threads in my serger, so I did a 3-thread stitch formation for my serger to finish the outer edge. Now you can see these little bits of white there, I hope. Let's get this closer so maybe you can see it. So little bits right there. That's because I sewed over paper. I cut strips of paper, and I happened to use medical exam paper in a big roll, and I had this underneath the work, next to the throat plate, underneath the fabric, and I stitched through it. I also pinned literally about every inch or 2 inches, and I would use my walking foot, and because my Bernina has the free arm system where I have the knee lever and can raise and lower the presser foot, I would sew for an inch, inch and a half, raise the presser foot, readjust, repin. So I'm pinning the fabric through the paper and I'm holding it in place. And you can see I got a pretty flat seam there. But this is the wrong side, so the paper I have to get out of there. And it tears away really easily, but there are always little bits. So we have these special tweezers that we sell that come from Japan, and they're flat on one edge and then pointed on the end. So it's different than your normal tweezers. So that flat section allows you to get in here and pull the paper away like that. So that was television work. There's not much really, but a little bit. So while I'm watching my latest detective whatever on Netflix, I'm picking up paper with my tweezers. So I made a test sample of a seam finish. And then I made a test sample of something on the horizontal. So that would be a hem. So I started by just stitching a hem, pressing it under, steaming it under, by the way. Steaming, that is the trick. I never let my iron really touch the fabric. But I steamed and pressed the hem to the wrong side, and then I just stitched just to see what would happen. And you can see on my first test that it's very bubbly. Now granted, I could steam some of this out, but that's a lot to steam out. So I used my paper under this one and my walking foot, and you can see there's a complete difference in how that behaves. The other thing that I use is some sort of a point, like a knitting needle or an awl or a chopstick. So as I'm sewing, I'm pushing this fabric through just a little bit with the point of this, and it really helps to also keep things flat. But this paper will just peel off. Sometimes I use excess tissue from patterns that I've already cut out, but I just simply used what was in my sewing room over the weekend, and it worked out just great. So those are my test samples, and now I've worked out the bugs, at least for stitching, before I do anything at all. In the cutting out process, I realized that this fabric, after it's washed, is very uneven and very wavy, and you've completely lost the straight of grain. So it's important to establish that straight of grain again. So to do that, I've cut into the selvage, and then I want to pull a thread, which you have to kind of dig to find, and then you can see where it is gathered up, and you can cut along that thread until it's ready to pull another thread. Never works on camera, you know. There we go. Okay, you can see how it's wrinkled up, and now I cut along that thread. So take the time to do that. You'll be amazed at how off grain this will be. So straight of grain. And the other thing is marking. Traditional marking does not work. You can't use chalks because this fabric is too pebbly. It's going to get lost in that. And I'm not a big fan of markers anyway. I sometimes use disappearing markers, but I'm always testing them because I have certainly gotten myself in trouble when I've used markers that are the wrong color. So I want to use Tailor Tacks. And so I'm just going to use this as a sample of a pattern piece that has a little dot on it someplace where I need to mark the fabric. So I'm going to put a pin through the paper at the dot. And then I pull this back, the paper back, and now I'm going to use silk thread. I have spools of silk thread sitting every place in all colors because it doesn't matter what color you use for a marking. And I pull the paper back, and then I'm going to take one stitch through the fabric with a single strand of thread, and then I'm going to take another stitch. So I'm tying this up as a little, drawing this up as a little knot, and I'm going to leave two tails, and there's my tailor tack. Now you realize that I've just done this through a single layer, and that's because you're going to cut out single layer. And the only way you're going to be able to get these garments to hang even remotely on the straight of grain is to cut out single layer. And actually, I straightened the fabric under every single pattern piece that I cut. 2 fronts, a back, and 2 sleeves, and a collar. So and the pockets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times I straightened the fabric in preparation for cutting out. So actually, it took me a long time to cut out, an hour or so, but you know, kind of listen to a podcast on your iPad and cut out. Cutting out is my least favorite thing to do on earth, so it's always hard for me. But tailor tacks will stay in for the duration of your sewing. Otherwise, other markings are going to disappear, and other types of tailor tacking will disappear as well. I chose not to use any interfacing on this fabric. I wanted everything to be relaxed and rumpled and casual, so I did not interface the collar. I didn't interface the front band. I toyed with the idea of interfacing behind the buttonholes, but I didn't even do that. And we can talk about that in a minute. All right, so my shoulder seams are the starting point for this garment. And you can see that I thought, because of this fabric, that I needed to stabilize this fabric. So I cut this piece of 1/2 inch knit stay tape, the exact length of the pattern, so that when I laid this on the ironing board, then I could make sure that this had retained the same length as what the pattern said, because my strip was the right length. So then I fused this 1/2 inch tape centered over the seam line on both of the shoulder seams. So then I decided I wanted it in the neckline as well. But because I was using just the single collar, and this garment does not have a facing piece, there was nothing to hide the tape below the seam line. So I actually marked the seam line at the 5/8 of an inch. Then I fused and shaped this 1/2 inch knit tape, which, by the way, because it's a knit tape, it molds a little bit. Then I was able to put it inside of the seam allowance and then stay stitch right under that. So it held my stay stitching. Had I stay stitched this first, this neckline would have gotten all stretched out. But again, this was cut to the distance of the pattern, and therefore I knew that the neckline was the original shape. This knit stay tape is fusible. I don't know that I mentioned that. You can, if you don't have this, we do sell it in black and white. But if you have fusible interfacing, you can cut strips and use this. But I use knit because even though I'm trying to stabilize areas, I still want it to have the character of the fabric, and so I want it to have a bit of stretch. And that's why knit is better than a stable stay tape, as we used to use so much of. I wrote an article years ago for Threads magazine all about sorting out all those tapes and fusibles. I don't know, I can't tell you which article it is. I probably have to go look it up, but it's still out there, and it might be a good article to refer to if you're one of those people that has all the CDs from all the Threads articles from the beginning of time. So, all right, so that's stabilizing, and that's where I started. Then I knew how to sew the side seams. I knew how to hem it. Let me talk a little bit more about this hemming, because once again, we have a special product that we use. First of all, I cut templates, and I use tagboard, which is a manila file folder, and I cut them at 1/8 inch increments and keep all of these different templates beside my ironing surface, beside my iron, in a little caddy, it's called, and I mark them with whatever width they are. The hem on this particular garment is 1 5/8 inches, so I cut one that width using a rotary cutter, so it's very nicely cut and very clean edged. So I would put it on the wrong side of the fabric and press the hem up and over so that the top, the raw edge of the fabric matches the top edge of the template. And then I steam through all of that. Again, not really pressing, just steaming. And I do a lot of work with my hands to make sure that things are set in place, and I let it cool before I move the fabric. This is our famous product called FusiWeb. It is a 3/8 inch wide paper covered line of glue. And once you press down the strip of paper on the edge of the hem, then you can peel off the paper, and what's left is this sheer little line of glue, which means that I can then steam and press this hem up, serge the edges if I choose to do that, turn the edges again, whatever the finish is that you're using, and that's how you get this nice stable hem. First of all, it's nailed down with glue, and then with the paper and the walking foot, you're going to get a nice look on this. So that's our hems and our shoulders. The other thing is, wherever you have to trim, which is maybe the neck seam, don't over trim these kinds of fabrics because they're kind of spongy and lofty. Normally you might trim to say 3/8 of an inch on a seam. I left these seams pretty wide, a 1/2 inch, because otherwise if they get too narrow you're going to get a lump instead of something flat. And also you want to grade the seams, and I grade seams with scissors. So I use my scissors and I use them flat so that when I trim I'm getting 2 different widths. This is, you can see the 2 different widths there. That's a terrible looking grade, but you get the idea. All right. I think that covers pretty much everything. Tailor tacks, cut single layer, tag board, don't trim too much, test, test, test. So here you go. These are the top 10 tips for sewing on crinkled fabrics. We also have a tutorial on our website that's called Sewing Crinkles, Gauzes, and Laces, and it goes into depth on all of these topics. I think I mentioned that we now have this new category on our website called videos, and this will be posted there with the links to all of the fabrics that I've talked about. Now I want to talk to you about what I'm going to do with this Zen jacket, what I'm going to make next. So, my caramel color is my neutral for the summer, I've decided. So I can do something fairly monochromatic and make some urban pants. These are the pants that do not have a side seam. They have a seam down the front, and then it opens into a vent with a button and loop. And again has our signature waistband of flat in the front and elastic in the back. But the color that really intrigues me this season with this is some kind of rosy color, pink, so forth. So I'm going to work with that. I might make a t-shirt. To go with that. Either out of that, in that small print, this is an all cotton and lycra knit. I have another one that just came in that I also like with it, that has lots of colors, but again, the pink overtones, rosy, corals, and so forth. I could also pull in some greens. We have a beautiful olive green laundered linen that could also work with this instead of the pink for the pants. This is a cotton and lycra knit as well. We've gotten quite a few of these in just in the last week, so you might want to check out the cotton knit section. This one really has, I really have my eye on this one. It's one of these big graphic knits. This one I'll probably put some green pants with, but I'm thinking this is on my radar for the next sew. And then for something where I need to maybe dress it up a bit, we have this wonderful new fabric from Etro, the designer, the Italian designer Etro. And I'm thinking a beautiful blouse. And by the way, if you make the same pattern as a blouse and a jacket, you always know they're going to go together. The necklines work together, the sleeves work together. So I could make a Zen shirt in its traditional form in this fabric to wear under it. Or I'm thinking pants. These might be West End pants, which are our wide leg pant. It'd be Hudson pants like I have on, Valencia pants, but this is a very sophisticated look. And then I could put this deep rusty color with it as a shirt or a t-shirt. So that might be another look for me to change it altogether. So I have about 4 things to make in about, what, a week? I don't know. We'll see. But I'm all revved up to really work with this jacket and make lots of things to go with it. I'm thinking that the next plane trip I go on, that jacket's going to be on me, because I think that's the perfect travel jacket with the big pockets. It's something that's loose and can be a little bit warm if it needs to be, or I can also take it off, wad it up. You can't hurt it now, it's already wrinkled. Now, so here's the thing about this fabric. So I washed the fabric first. I went through all these samples of sewing it and testing it out. I get the jacket all finished, and I think to myself, I wonder what would have happened if I had sewn it up, the unwashed fabric first, finished the jacket and thrown the whole jacket in the washing machine and seen what happened. Maybe I wouldn't have had to go through all the issues that I've just told you about, and I could have just sewn it up with ease and worried about the shrinkage later. The problem with that is you're not sure what's going to happen, and so it's a little bit of a risk, but the thought did occur to me. All right. We have all of these, not all, but many of our Crinkled Gauzes on sale from now for another few days. So check those out. Again, the link will be under videos of what those fabrics are. And next week, I'm going to talk about a new pattern introduction, a download pattern, pants. They're called the Hollywood pants. Erin's been madly working on them, and they're finished, and they're beautiful. And I'm going to talk about that next week. So, do we have any questions?
We do. Let's see. So it goes back to your discussion about the pants you're wearing. Would that fabric be good to make a pair of Quincy pants?
Oh yes, perfect for the Quincy pants. The viscose linen is
yes.
perfect. Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you have an oldie but goodie. That's a great pair of pants. Yeah.
Okay, and let's see. I know we had a couple questions about, so this fabric is very difficult. Why? Why is it difficult? Why work with it?
Oh, well, it's difficult because of the character change that happens when you wash it. And the crinkle and the fabric tends to want to stretch out as you sew it. So you have to tame it and get it under control so that you're working with the same size of garment that you meant for it to be. Why do it? Because I want this look. I want that rumpled look. I want this high-end look. This particular, let me find this. All right, this Oscar jacket retailed for $539. I wrote that down. Do I want to spend $539 for a jacket that I'm not sure I will like? Or am I going to make my own jacket for, let's see here, this fabric is $21 a yard. So for $45, I'm going to make that jacket. That's why.
Okay, the cottage tunic in the plaid.
Yes.
How many inches did you add?
You know, I would have to measure that, but just in looking at it, first of all, the deep hems that are normally there, which are 6-inch hems, are not used. So we're looking at 18 to 20 inches probably. But we can check that out and put it on Facebook for you. Exactly.
Okay, how much ease do you recommend for the cottage shirt in the bust?
Oh, a lot. A standard minimum ease is 4 inches, but on the cottage, 10, 12 inches is going to be more standard for you. People tend to wear that garment too small, in my opinion. I think it needs to drape and be oversized, but that's a personal opinion. I can get on anything from an extra small, and I can wear an XXL in it. I can wear any size I like, but the size that I like on me is a medium.
Okay, can you put on your new jacket so they can see the fit and the ease?
I always roll up my sleeves. Makes me look jauntier. Okay, can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, there you go.
Okay. You were talking about cotton thread. I think it was when you were doing the tailor tacks. Do we sell that?
Actually, I was talking about silk thread relating to tailor tacks. And yes, we have it. We don't have it on our website. You would have to email us or call us for us to send you that. I use cotton thread. I use Mettler cotton thread, silk finish cotton thread for sewing.
Okay. Let's see. Would serging your edges cause stretching?
Yes, and that's because and the reason it doesn't is that I use my differential. I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of the things I was going to talk about. I own a serger that has a differential adjustment on it, and that means you're changing how the fabric is feeding through the serger. And you have to change the settings so that you won't get the wave. And I did have to do that on this particular garment, or this particular fabric. But that's how you control it. If you own a serger without a differential, frankly, I suggest trading it in for one that does. Because I change it all the time.
Did you do anything special for the buttonholes? Did you use paper?
I used paper under the buttonholes, yes. One of the things I wanted to mention is I did pin my fabric to the paper. Another way to do it is to use spray glue. If you think you're going to wash the garment again, you can always spray glue the fabric to the paper and it stabilizes it, but I didn't do that. I used pins. But I put the buttonholes in vertically, and I realized in making my samples that I didn't have as much stretching and difficulty sewing vertically as I did horizontally. So I did not have any stretch. Sometimes I used 2 or 3 layers of paper, but on this garment I used 1 layer of the medical exam paper and it worked out just fine.
Do you have any Crinkled Gauze with a pattern?
No, other than the plaid, I don't believe we do. Can you think of any that we have? No, and that's interesting because I'm not sure that I've seen one ever. That's probably inaccurate, but I don't see them at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, Martha asked, can you talk a bit about the laundered linen? Do you have it in white? Having trouble seeing the rest of the comment, but something about pants, white, laundered linen.
Yes. It's really heavy. Yes, we do. We have it in caramel, aqua, peach, orange, yellow, gray, 3 shades of green, white, natural, and a dusty pink.
And it's 100% linen.
100%
correct?
linen, and it's already washed, and it's ready to go. Now, you're welcome to put it in the washing machine. I haven't tried that yet, actually. That's sort of one of my next.
I did, and it's good. I did that with the peach.
Did it change?
A little more rumpled, but
Okay.
when I ironed it out, it's
All right.
It's nice.
Okay, so, you know, a lot of linens that you see in stores has a finish on it, and it makes it stiff. And when you wash it, that finish goes away. So I prefer linen that wrinkles as a rumpled kind of wrinkle rather than a crispy, creased kind of wrinkle. Too many wrinkle rumples, whatever. So I like the fact, I love linen, and a lot of people don't like linen because it does wrinkle, but I love the fact that it does wrinkle in the right way, and these wash linens do that.
The pockets on your Zen jacket, how did you cut the pockets? Maybe the shape?
It's a rectangle, and the finished pocket is 7.5 inches wide by 8.5 inches high. I added seam allowances on 3 sides, and I added a 1 5/8 hem on the top, so that the hem on the top of the pocket matched the hem on the bottom of the garment. But it's just a simple rectangle, so I made my own pattern.
Okay, last week you mentioned a fitting book.
Yes, that fitting book, I think we've posted that on Facebook, but let me talk about it again. It's called The Perfect Fit, and it is by Creative Publishing International. And that's a consortium of authors that have contributed to that book. It's old, but it is a great book. And you can get it on Amazon or other sites like that. We do not sell the book, but it's easily obtained.
What t-shirt pattern would you recommend?
Well, we have, I think it depends on whether you want a fitted t-shirt or a more loosely fitted t-shirt. And in the category of fitted, we have the ET, and I use the Urban top as a simple t-shirt without the front flanges. And then in terms of the less fitted t-shirts, that would be the swing tee. So between the swing tee and the ET, I've got it covered between more fitted and looser fitting.
What type of product do you wash with?
Oh.
Woolite or what's your
No, I use
recommendation?
whatever I pick up at the grocery store. Now, sometimes I will use a more earth-friendly something or other, like Myers. But that's only because of my preference about that, not because I think it's better for my fabric or clothes. But really, I'm not particularly careful about that in terms of, I mean, I can use anything from Tide to Myers and I get the same results.
Can you say what pattern you're wearing again?
I'm wearing the Odette top and the Hudson pants and the Zen jacket.
Yeah, Goody mentioned the Hudson pants and wanting to see them, but
I'm not taking them
they're
off.
on your body.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if I can find more questions about what you're wearing. Let's see. Sorry, going through all these. Would you recommend tacking up the sleeve fold back, like if when you're
You
rolling
could.
your-
If the fabric tends to fall down, you could. I toyed with the idea of turning this back into a really deep hem, 6 or 7 inches, and then folding it back up. Because not everybody likes to see the seam. And that's a really good alternative, and then that's easily tacked. So yeah, this particular one looks like it's going to stay when I wear it, but I'll soon find out.
I think we're good.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining me today. And again, join us next Tuesday for the Hollywood Pants.